Hi guys, it's Alex here, and now for the second part of how to checkmate with king, knight, and bishop against king, we're going to be covering open positions. So in the first part, we talked about closed positions, and we learned the technique of Delétang's triangle method to progressively tighten the net that we cast against the enemy king. However, an open position, like the one that we have here on the board, is one that is defined by the fact that the enemy king is actually able to reach the diagonal or the corner squares of the color opposite to our bishop. In this case, because we have a dark squared bishop, we see that the black king has reached the corner that is the light squared corner, and that is known as the wrong color corner. Why this is the wrong corner for us is because it's impossible to organize our pieces in a way to force checkmate if the black king is on the corners that are opposite to the color of our bishop. So what we must learn, if black is in an open position and we cannot prevent this, we must learn how to drive the king away from the wrong corner. So here is an example, and we will show that in order to do this, we use the W maneuver. What is the W maneuver? It's simply a way in which we move the knight it forms shapes on the board by its movements that resemble a W, and that is why it's called the W maneuver. To make more sense of it, let's show an example right now. In this position, white plays knight to c7, check. Now black only has the move king to b8, and here, white burns the tempo with the move bishop g1. So by burns the tempo, I mean he just waits a move and forces black to step onto the c8 square, as the a8 square is covered and the a7 also. King c8. At this moment, black is deprived of the b8 square by bishop to a7. This way we see that the black king started on a8, and now it's already on d8. It's being progressively forced away from the wrong corner. However, we must be careful that the black king doesn't manage to get very central again and perhaps is able to run this time to the other wrong corner. So in order to prevent this, we start with the W maneuver. We go knight to d5 here. Now, the king goes to e8, and we approach with our king. If the king tries to go back, we now cover the c8 square with knight to e7. As the king goes to e8, it's its only choice, we now approach with our own king. King d8, trying to run to c7, we take the square away with bishop b6 check. King e8, and now we see our knight went from c7 to d5 to e7, and now it's going to go to f5. We can see that W shape taking place. King goes to f8, bishop to d8, king now goes to e8, and bishop to h4. For those of you who followed the first part and understood Delétang's triangle method in full, you may suspect by now that black is actually now unable to escape from the triangle between the points h4, h8, and d8. We are on a 5 square diagonal for the bishop, so we are actually in Delétang's second net, because even if we put the king, let's say, to g6, it could not run to h5 after a move like knight g3. So we can see that we're in Delétang's second net already. And so from this moment on, you can only use your knowledge of Delétang's triangle method, and you can forget about anything else. So this is useful to know. You only need the W maneuver up until the moment where black is eventually caught in one of Delétang's net. And at that moment, you learn the technique that you used in the first video. King f8, bishop e7 check, king g8, king f6, king h7, king f7, the king must step to h8, king g6, king g8, knight h6 check, king h8, and bishop f6 checkmate. So we will now show one final example from the most difficult position. So the king is on d1, the knight on e1, the bishop on f1, and the black king is on d5. We have an extremely open position, and we will very quickly show how white makes progress from such a position. So king d2, approaching with the king. King e4, delaying the advance of the white king. Knight goes to d3. King f3. The king tries to frustrate white's advances. Bishop to h3. And now the king, one of the ways to defend, if you are unlucky enough to be the side with just the lone king, one of the annoying ways to defend is to attack one of white's pieces whenever possible. King g3, the bishop must move. And now king h4, king e3, king g5, king e4, and in this position, king h5, we approach with the king whenever possible, king f5. Now, at this point, if king to h4, we would simply play bishop f7, closing off access to h5, and after any of these two moves, bishop h5, we would have already achieved Delétang's triangle method. So therefore, a smart opponent will run to h6 instead. This is the best defense. At this point, we play knight f4, covering the h4 square. King is pushed back to g7, and now knight to g6. King goes to h6, king f6, and once again, the best defense is king to h7. If, for example, the king goes to h5, then this is easier to checkmate. Bishop f5, king h6, knight e5, king h5, bishop g6 check, king h4, king f5, king g3, and after bishop h5, we see once again Delétang's triangle. The second net is in place. Returning to the original position, black once again posts the most stubborn defense. King h7, running to the dark squared corner. Now, bishop a2, white has nothing better than to force black to move back to h6. And now we begin this drive from the wrong color corner to the right color corner. Again, the right color corner is the same color as the color of our bishop. So bishop to g8, taking away the h7 square. King h5, and now this time it's from a lateral view of the board, but we once again are using a W maneuver. Knight to e5 to control g4, king h4, king f5, king h5, running back to the corner if possible, and knight g4. So we see this W maneuver in play. King h4, king f4, king h5. It wants to run to g7, to g6. So bishop f7 check, king h4, and the W maneuver continues from g6 to e5 to g4 to e3 now. King h3, and finally we can play bishop h5, and Delétang's triangle method comes into play. We are in Delétang's second net. The game would continue king h4, bishop d1, king h3, bishop g4 check, king h2, king f3, king g1, king g3, king h1, king f2, king h2, knight f1 check, king h1, and finally the king is in the corner, bishop f3, checkmate. Once again, the bishop delivers the checkmate with the king on the same color corner as the bishop. That brings our videos on how to checkmate with a knight and a bishop against the lone enemy king to an end. Of the 4 fundamental checkmates, this one is by far the most challenging, and I only recommend that you take the time to memorize it or to learn the techniques if you are already beyond the beginner stage. The most important concepts to be aware of are Delétang's triangle method, which is applied for closed positions, and the W maneuver, which you must add to your knowledge of Delétang's triangle method for open positions. So the first thing you do is you identify if the position is open or closed. And the second thing that you do is you apply either Delétang's triangle method for closed or a combination of Delétang's triangle method and the knight W maneuver in the case of open positions. Hopefully, if you get this position in a tournament game, you will be able to apply what you learned and bring home the full point. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in a different video in the future.